Good morning.
Good morning.
Please allow me to stand on the protocols which have already been established. And I think that's what our MC Gava told us to do. So I'm following the orders. Where is he? He have stepped out. Okay. Let me start by maybe emphasizing a few notes that I've taken from the previous speakers. My sister Goret, I can't see her, I think she stepped out. She emphasized about the theme of this year, that accelerating women's leadership and influence in banking and finance is not just for women. That's very true. I think sometimes we are being misunderstood when we organized women conference, women workshops. Once we call it women, people think that we are not inclusive. We don't include men. We understand that the fight, if it's a fight against, in order to achieve gender equality and women empowerment, also needs to include men. So we do work with men. And for us as UN Women, we have heard that quite a lot. When people hear UN Women, they said, this is the organization which hates men. No, we do work with men, and we believe on men change makers, men allies. So thank you, Goret, for making that point about that it's not just for women. It includes men as well. Now, my sister Q, I think the name was Q, the MC, she talked about Kameza Mane. That's new for me. I think I need to learn. Sorry, I've never seen it on my table. Yes, so I think there are quite a lot of good things here in Uganda which I need to learn. I am from Tanzania, just next door, and I have never heard about Kameza Mane, but it seems like a good idea. So let's, please, let's touch base before we finish this conference. Then I think another speaker talked about, I think it's my sister here. She talked about the 7 Uibfs principles, which I think you and other companies adopted this year. So congratulations, and let's encourage more companies to adopt those women economic empowerment principles. They are very useful, they are very good. We can talk more about it if you want during the break. And my brother Amos, of course, he told me he have to run. He's going to attend another meeting, who represented the speaker. And I see Gava there, you know, I know why he doesn't want to come in the room, because I'm going to criticize him on one of his comments. We talk, I mean, one of the speakers talked about, no, it's the representative of the Speaker of Parliament, Amos. He talked about how lonely it gets at the top. And I think another speaker talked about it. And I'm going to say the same. It gets really lonely at the top. Some men as well, who are leaders, they made that same comment. For women, I think in a special way, we really find it as further the top you get, the further lonely it can get. And I think the challenges and the struggle that we face as women, sometimes it's different from our male colleagues. It's very true. Yes, Gava, get those Land Cruisers, get all those things, get there, but you will experience the loneliness when you get there. I remember when I came back to Uganda, I mean, this is my second time around to be here in Uganda. I was here first, I came in 2012, and then I left in 2015, and then I came back in 2022. And I remember among the discussion that I had with the Minister of Gender was, how can we support women leaders? And there is a platform within the Ministry of Gender of supporting women at the top leadership level. So we can discuss that more if anybody is interested. Then I also want to mention about this theme. It really resonates with International Women's Day theme for this year. You remember March 8, we celebrated International Women's Day, and our theme was accelerating gender equality. Why did we choose this theme? There are quite a lot of reasons, and I'm really glad that you also chose a similar theme for this conference this year. One, I want to say, this year, 2025, it's a year of milestones. And I think some of these milestones I'm talking about. This year, we're celebrating 30 years since the Beijing Plan of Action. And Beijing Plan of Action have 12 priority areas which relate to everything and anything that we do as women, but not only as women, but as Ugandans and as the world. So it has been 30 years, and in September, we will be launching and celebrating in New York the 30 years of Beijing, Beijing plus 30. And Uganda is among the member states which submitted a report very early. And that report was launched during the International Women's Day when we celebrated. So I encourage you, if you haven't seen the report, maybe knock the doors at the Ministry of Gender. They have the report. 30 years of Beijing plus 30 Plan of Action. We are also, another milestone that we are celebrating this year is 25 years of 1325. We know the General Assembly Resolution 1325. For all member states, we are encouraging to develop their own national action plan for celebrating or for the implementation of 1325. And Uganda is a role model. Uganda is among the countries which have really developed its own national action plan for the implementation of women, peace, and security. So that's another milestone. Another milestone, this year we have 5 years before we reach 2030, where the reality will be known as far as sustainable development goals are concerned. So it's a lot of milestones. And I'm really glad that you invited us as UN Women to this workshop. I'm very grateful. I think all of us have been following backlash against gender equality and women empowerment. And the backlash is getting stronger. But when I see workshop like this, I'm really consoled, I'm really encouraged. As much as we are facing the backlash, whenever we face the backlash, we need to push forward. We need to push forward. Last month, I was invited in a workshop, and my session was in the afternoon. When I reached there, one of my colleagues was there and said, "Oh, you should have been here in the morning." I said, "Why?" He said, "Oh, we were discussing whether," they were talking about the book, their training material that we were talking about. So some partners were saying, can we remove this terminology, gender equality, transformative gender equality, because of the backlash? That was, in January, we experienced more and more backlash about terminology and so on. So it reached a point that we who are champions, who are pushing forward the agenda, we have fought for decades to achieve gender equality and women empowerment. Even this, what we are doing today. And so in 2025, we should ask ourselves if we should be using terminologies like gender in our documents or not. It's very sad. And we are challenged sometimes because of money. we are being told, if you use this terminology, then you're not going to get funding. First of all, there have been a lot of cutting, cut back on funding and so on. So congratulations for keeping the agenda and for keeping the fight. Let's not go back to 1940s and so on. Let's move forward, okay? I was telling my sister there, usually we are given a speech to follow, but I didn't start with what they gave me. So let me go back to what they asked me to tell you. Okay, so let me begin by stating what is a fact, not a debate. When women lead, we all win. And I think my sister there talked about the same. As the evidence demonstrates, when you see a woman leader who leads, we can see the changes. We can see the impact. So they told me to say that. I've said, and it's true. Women in leadership help unlock economic potential through inclusive growth and better investment outcomes. We had statistics here. I'm going off my my script. My sister presented the statistic that we have 265 board members. Out of it, it's only 87 women. But if you go deeper and see what those 87 women have done, you'll be surprised. You'll be amazing. Most of the banks have products for women. And if you go behind it, there is a woman leader who have influenced it. And we heard one of the names, Sarah, which I'll mention later on. So McKinsey did a study in 2020 and found out that companies with more women in executive teams were 25% more likely to have above average profitability, which is true. And we have heard from previous speakers. Women leaders tend to prioritize social equity and inclusive development. Women parliamentarians globally are more likely to introduce legislation on health, education, childcare, and gender-based violence, which is very true. We did a study as UN Women in 2021, and we found out that. I know my brother Amos, on behalf of the speaker, promised to help us to push the legislation. So let's not let him off the hook. Let's knock his door. Seeing women in leadership inspires young girls to pursue ambitions. Most of the time when I'm invited to a number of occasions, I see young women, they come, they say, okay, we would like to talk to you, we would like to hear how you get here. And I'm really happy. I invite a lot of young women to my office so that I can share my story. It's not that easy. It's not easy. And most of the women leaders you'll talk to, they'll share more or less the same story, but following different routes. A study in India found that female political leadership increased adolescent girls' educational attainment and aspirations, which is true, even though sometimes as women leaders, we are being criticized that sometimes when women get this leadership position, they don't hold hands of other women. So if it's true, let's digest and let's change. Let's make sure that we help other women to reach this where we have reached. Diverse leadership results in policies that are more reflective of society needs. For instance, during COVID-19, countries with female heads of state implemented social protection and health measures more rapidly than the countries with male heads of state. So over last decades, there has been significant progress in women's leadership in Africa, of course, including Uganda, marked by increased representation, policy reform, and visibility in key sectors. Over the last decade, women's leaders in Africa has made significant progress marked by increased representation, policy reform. I'm repeating this one. Several African countries have exceeded 30% female representation in national parliament, including our country here, Uganda. Tanzania and Namibia have female presidents, and Namibia also have a vice president who is a woman. The vice president of Uganda, we know Her Excellency Jessica Alupo, and we also know that the Right Honorable Prime Minister Robina Nabanja, these are both women. So we are really proud of Uganda. And the Uganda history of having vice president didn't start with Her Excellency Jessica Alupo. We know the previous one was also, there was another vice president when I was here last time. And the recent chosen president of Namibia, you know her cabinet, what are the percentage between male and female? Almost 50%. Yeah, so he's doing very well. And in Tanzania as well, I mentioned I'm from Tanzania. Mama Samia have really made her to increase the positions of women. So we are very happy to see what women can do when they hold those high positions. So the proportion of women on corporate boards in Africa rose from 12% in 2015 to 22% in 2022. So over the past 10 years, Uganda has seen a notable rise in the number of women heading commercial banks, a space that was previously male-dominated. Today, we have Sarah Arapa. How do you spell her last name? Arapa, yes. CEO of Citibank Uganda and first female chairperson of the Uganda Bankers Association. Congratulations, Uganda. Not only that, but if we look at the judiciary, women judges and justices make up 50.8% of judiciary. Congratulations again. With all those progress and so on, the gaps in leadership for women remain wide and persistent across sectors, regions, and levels of authority, which shaped by a mix of systemic barriers, cultural norms, and institutional biases. While women hold over 40% of cabinet roles and 33% of parliamentary seats in Uganda, they are still underrepresented in top corporate roles and in financial regulation and economic planning positions. This is according to IMF report of 2024. You can try to read, to get hold of that report and read the details. Women are less likely to be promoted to senior roles even with equal qualifications and performance. The glass ceiling persists, with women overrepresented in middle management but underrepresented at executive levels. Women are often clustered in social sectors, education, health, and underrepresented in STEM, finance, and tech leadership roles. Many of these challenges stem from a number of factors, which include some of these are lack of enabling factors, which include paid parental leave, flexible working arrangements, child care support, and anti-harassment mechanisms, which create structural disadvantage for women, particularly mothers. I think at the UN in a few years, we started to have, we have, of course, maternity leave, which are full paid, But we also have now paternity leave, which is also full paid. My sister there talked about harassment. A lot of women are facing harassment. There are quite a lot of women who are being told, if you want to climb the ladder, you have to offer some services and all those kind of things which are very painful to talk about. So sexual harassment is real. Limited access to networks and mentorship. Men are more likely to be part of informal networks that influence promotion and leadership selection. Women often lack access to senior mentors and sponsors who can advocate for their advancement. If there are young women here who are really struggling to climb the ladder and you want mentorship, please, I open myself. I can't sponsor you, but I can mentor you. So you are welcome. So to bridge the gap in leadership, let us commit to 1, reviewing institutional policies. And I'm really glad that, Gorette, you talked about that bill, which if you want me to go with you or to go with the team when you go to the parliament, please, I'm available. Let's use the leadership. Let's use the parliamentarians who we have elected. I think most of them are elected. I'm not sure, because here in Uganda it's different. We also need to create mentorship programs that connect young women to female leaders. We also need to align with international frameworks like the UN Women's Empowerment Principles, which I've already mentioned. We also need to invest in leadership training and financial literacy for women at all levels. And perhaps most important, we need to tell success stories. Let's share our stories, how we reach where we have reached. So in closing, the real question is not, can women lead? But will we clear the path for them to lead? Let's not just ask, can women lead? But let's ask ourselves, can we clear the path for them to lead? And by clearing the path, I mean so many things. Like if you want to run, you need a business, you need money, you need qualification. There are certain positions where you need STEM, like science subjects. So how do we prepare women for all this? So bridging the gender gap in leadership is not about doing women a favor. It is about unlocking Uganda's untapped potential. A gender-equal banking sector is more innovative, resilient, and prosperous sector. Thank you.